Excellent. Right, so we will just start off with a recap from last session. And this time we will start the recap with our excellent AI android Ond.
Well, greetings and salutations, one and all. What does Arndt recollect from last time? Well, his faulty memory banks, well, in fact, their memory banks themselves aren't faulty whatsoever. The guy playing Arndt, on the other hand. Anyway, we, having successfully navigated in our ship, the Elbing, the good ship Elbing, away from the planet and the minefield that we'd escaped through, set about taking care of very important business, most notably having breakfast together. There were a few challenges involved with that, as the ship's computer system, dubbed Suzanne, I believe, was, I wouldn't say temperamental, but certainly stubborn, maybe an element of dwarvish programming somewhere in the history, but refusing to offer exactly what everybody wanted. Nevertheless, we all got some semblance of what was required, I believe. And as we went about discussing and agreeing on which course we might plot and how we might proceed, we were suddenly thrust into a strange scenario revolving around attacks by some sort of short-range fighter vehicles, space vehicles, that seemed to be firing upon, of all things, some wreckage and life pods. We, of course, as goodly space citizens, took it upon ourselves to chase them off and set about collecting said life pod from space. A cunning plan involving Shishtag in a spacewalk, as he is military trained and prepared to do that, and a somewhat turnabout position from Reese, as he decided he was going to accompany until he realized his suit won't actually sustain him out there for very long, so he immediately just decided not to. Anyway, we collected said pod, reeled it back into the ship, and were, well, somewhat surprised that the readings of an unconscious human within said pod were the only thing we'd picked up on our scanners. It turned out there was a second inhabitant. And I will hand over to the lovely Estrabeth for the next part of the story.
Thank you. So after breakfast, and the ship won't give me real coffee. I have no idea why. We got hit by, or almost hit by something. Thanks to my awesome flying, we got out of that with no big trouble other than people falling to the roof and stuff. You should really get magnetic boots. Anyway, we picked up the life pod with Captain Solomon Hill and Lieutenant Manchamato, and after some pretty deft diplomacy from my crew here, we ended up making friends with them. When the ships were like, yeah, you should probably come, we are under attack. So sprinting up to the bridge, that's where we find ourselves now. Kimu.
Let's see what to add. Reese and I did a scan on the Elbing to find high energy content minerals so that we could start printing replacement parts for the Elbing by adapting the food replicators. We managed to find a source and shunted the coordinates to Astrabeth for us to take us there when we found a minefield and said pirates attacking the life pod. The engines of the Elbing are at 24%, which isn't good. We can't go to drift, and life support's at 64%. So both of those systems are pretty urgent repairs. We also have on board Yasmin, who's Shirin, Constance, who is another Yosoki, like Reese, and our aforesaid life pod inhabitants. And at the moment, general quarters is sounding, and we're under attack. Nothing further to add. You hasn't been.
Feel free to.
I'll chime in. Liberally used is the word friend. Newly acquired two persons via live pod, which I wouldn't call them friends when they actually pulled a grenade on us. But at least they were willing to put the pin back in and come along somewhat friendly. But yes, I would definitely not call them friends quite yet. Reese is very suspicious. He doesn't like suicide bombers, especially people that are unstable enough to do that as a choice. No. So he will keep an eye on those people. But yes, there is a general alert. And yeah, over to Sistag.
Well, you filled in most of the stuff. Yeah, I did a nice spacewalk. I think it was like a leg of lamb or a leg of cow that I had for breakfast. That was very good. Yeah, I did our first spacewalk. When things settled at the life pod, I headed back up to the sensors, and all of a sudden I see a couple frigates and several smaller crafts heading in our general direction, and I hit the general quarters alarm. That's, I think, where we about left it. Shago.
Yes, it is Shago indeed. First of all, I thought I had control of how to add ships in Starfinder. It turns out I do not. So our ship combat today will be more theater of the mind than the battle map combat that we should have, but such is life, and there's not much I can do about it right now, except take 20 minutes to try to learn it, and we don't have that kind of time. So I'll have that sorted for next time. Other than that, you were all running to stations. You have a general call to arms going out throughout the Elbing. And I believe some roles might be in order as we are dropping straight into that. Yes, Sistag.
Oh no, I'm just waiting to start. As everyone's running to their stations, I want to talk to Suzanne.
Yes.
Suzanne, what's our maximum range of our rockets? Maximum effective range.
Turns out that's a damn good question, Sistag. Let me check that real quick,
No problem. Well, I check in also our experimental cannon. I need to know the maximum effective range of that too, Suzanne.
I'm gonna say that she gives you an answer, but what you basically have are medium range missiles at the moment.
Very well. Any markings on these frigates that are heading toward us? In a seafarer, I would probably recognize certain markings.
Actually, Starfinder has made life really easy when it comes to ship combat. You basically have short, medium, and long. They don't give numbers for it because that will, well, in ship combat, that will get real difficult real quick.
I take it the experimental weapon is long-range weapon?
No, actually, the experimental vortex field projector is a short range.
Short range.
Short range bow-mounted weapon.
Correct.
So that one is not in a turret, unlike your missile launcher. And as for the markings on and type of enemy ships dropping in, you're gonna have to check with your systems or sensor operator for that, as that's a different console than the.
But wouldn't it be on my HUD at the weapon station?
Yeah, but you get more like targeting icons and a lot of targeting data, but not the full sensor suite type thing, because that would just be jamming you down with a lot of info. You don't really need to hit things. So I believe, is it Kimu or Reese who's manning the sensors?
That would be Kimu.
I think we're pulling double duty sometimes on that, but it's Kimu normally.
Right. So I'm going to need a computers roll from Kimu with. Okay, well, really no need to to find out what the bonus from the AI is at the moment. What's dropped out from they've been hiding behind wreckage and debris are 3 Corvette class ships, so small, a bit smaller than the Elbing itself. The Elbing is more somewhere between a light cruiser and a destroyer in size.
Okay, more like a destroyer leader.
Yeah, well, think of the Elbing like a destroyer leader or light cruiser type size. For us, with the World of Warships ship sizes in our brains, and that's a pretty good comparison.
All right.
But they are marked with very clear pirate markings. You don't recognize the exact pirate fleet or cartel they're from, but they are very obviously pirates. With a red, what's Kimu's race again?
Las Hunter.
Yeah, a red Lashunta head and crossed bones in green behind them. And they seem to be armed with short-range kinetic slug thrower type guns. Not a class you've seen before.
And I'm sure they haven't seen this class ship neither.
They're probably pretty surprised to the fact that the Elbing is pretty heavily armed compared to its size. Well, it will be at some point. Right now, you have a lot of hard points that aren't actually fitted with it.
Okay, I'm looking at the HUD for my weapon systems. Suzanne, how many targets can I target with missiles?
You can fire 1 missile per target at 1 target. It is a single launcher at the moment.
Very well. I'm setting up the close-in weapons to take for mines and the fighters that are with these Corvettes.
Yeah.
And if they get close enough, they'll open up on the Corvette too. But I think our main armaments will be doing the damage on the Corvettes.
Right. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Masha is standing over Reese and like, what kind of armament do you have on this tub?
You are not part of the crew, so please take a seat and let us work.
I'm a trained naval officer, small rodent man. If there is a gun I can man, please point me towards it.
I look over to Sistag. Do we have an extra gun for the guest?
Nope. Most of our is all done by the HUD that I have set up here. We have no individual mounts, as far as I know, not yet.
Very well, then I shall head to your sick bay and prepare to repel boarders. Right, the corvettes are now in range, so Sistag can get a shot off with the missile launcher.
Okay, I'm shooting at the closest one first.
Right, so the AI, Susanna, gives you a +2 to your rolls, and otherwise it will be a gunnery check, so basically just your standard attack roll.
Standard attack roll. Okay.
Normally, Kimu would be able to aid you with the sensors, but at the moment, well, not all of the systems on the ship are ship-shape quite yet.
So what would my normal attack roll go under then?
That'll be the same one you use for your laser, basically.
Okay. Now is that the which one? This is which one am I supposed to click on for the dice?
I think it's where it says +5. It says out of ammo. Well, that's not right. Okay, let's try that again. Ah, okay, so it actually does. I'm gonna reload your gun for you here.
Oh, okay. I thought those were how many shots you had filled up.
No, it actually tracks your shots, so that's pretty
Okay,
handy.
that makes okay. So here goes nothing.
Yep, that is a 19. Let's see, what's our missiles at here? So I can see what kind of there we go. That'll be a 5d8. And the lieutenant stops. She's about to storm out of the room in a huff, and stops and stares at the screens in front of Sistag as a nuclear explosion blooms out from where the missile hits the corvette.
Okay.
Once the screens and sensors clear up and compensate for the radiation, you can't see any enemy ships.
Sistag is speechless. No ships on sensors, ma'am.
What? Repeat that, if you please.
No ships on sensor, ma'am.
Okay then.
Say no ships on the targeting computer, ma'am.
Well, I'm gonna take us out of this belt in case there are more, but well done.
Suzanne,
Yes, weapons officer.
what type of missiles do we carry?
Yeah, that is a Mark III Nibelung nuclear missile. Current status: 9 left in magazine.
Susanna, do we have the capability to manufacture more of those?
Not at the current time, Reese.
Susanna, do we know the projected yield of these missiles?
According to our previous weapons officer, projected yield was a very large boom.
I see. Thank you.
I think we should use these sparingly.
I think you're right.
That does sound like a good idea.
Hello, tiny doggo. Nope, does not want to come on the lap.
Kimu, any other thing on sensor?
Kimu goes and looks at the sensors.
Well, checking the sensors, most of the mines that have been dropped here seem to have either detonated or they're so spread apart that you'll be able to easily navigate them. Now that you know they're here, and you keep a slow speed, you can see them before they can get a target lock on you.
Plus, our closing weapon systems are set up to take out the mines too.
Yes, Kimu also sees a lot of wreckage from at least 17 different ships.
Is there anything worth salvaging?
That's a good question. Susanna?
Estimated time for salvage of high energy yield materials in the area would be 36 hours. Using automated systems only.
It was the purpose we were coming here for.
Estimated yield?
Estimated yield calculating.
Are we supposed to be able to get raw materials here?
A rough estimate, a 10% repair capability to all systems on ship. Or estimate 20,000 galactic credits of manufacturing capability.
10% is good, considering we only have a fairly low functioning engine.
I say we do it. Get ready.
Scavenging. Interesting.
Kimo?
So
Can we scan? Did the Corvettes literally disintegrate, or are they just a mass gone?
Looks like they broke apart due to the explosion. Some of it could have been disintegrated, but most of it is just a big cloud of debris.
I take it no life pods. I didn't have a chance.
I'm not seeing any showing up on the scanners. Let me look again. Not seeing anything. Susanna, if we assist the automatic systems, how many hours can we reduce the estimate by?
As we have not tried before, it is unknown. That would be entirely dependent on the efficiency of the crew.
How many suits do we have to send people out in?
You have the suits you've got to work with, basically. So, far as I'm aware, the only one with a suit that can work for any sort of time outside is Sistag.
I'll get ready and start doing some spacewalking to get materials.
Can we produce more?
Yes, once materials are gathered, common specification spacesuits can be produced with a cost in energy that can be converted to roughly what they would cost in credits.
Okay, yeah, let's just start and see where it brings us because we need this energy.
Yes. I have some experience in scavenging that might come in useful hand here. So, if I may be one of the first to acquire such a space suit, I would probably be able to increase salvaging operations significantly.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
States.
Agreed.
Missile yield specified to be 1.2 megatons.
Let's definitely use them sparingly.
Fortunately, the vortex is still experimental, so I don't know how stable that is as a weapon. We need to find other weapons to install on our hard points.
Well, first we need to get the ship functioning well enough to.
I will start doing the spacewalk, ma'am.
Brilliant. Also, don't call me ma'am, I'm just acting captain.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just a pilot.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, need that up.
It's at this point that Arndt returns to the bridge from medical. I take it from that explosion that was registered on the systems that there aren't really going to be any casualties or survivors to tend to. At least I assume so.
I don't think so, and it's a very big explosion.
Well, fortunately, I didn't waste too much time in extending medical facilities. I did find an instruction manual for what could be some makeshift medical beds and began trying to get some of them created through the replicator. But after 3 attempts, I ceased the operation. They all seemed to be suffering from exactly the same defect. There were several screws and components that were in excess and not required, and all of them seemed to have one or the other leg of the bed missing. I don't know if any of you know any of this material. He holds up a instruction manual that's clearly says in big letters at the top of it, IKEA, and it's some kind of bed design. But I don't know. I'd followed the instructions precisely. Every time I was left with screws over, and the bed fell apart quite quickly.
Sounds like a waste of resources to me.
Indeed.
I think we learned about that in the academy. IKEA? Wasn't that a god back on ancient Terra?
Could have been. It seemed to be very popular.
Humans.
Remember, there's so many of us that you can't really take us all under one comb. They must have been exaggerating. They said there was at one time 6 billion of us on one planet. Must have been joking.
Okay, I'm going to start gathering materials. What do I have to roll for the spacewalk?
Let me have a look-see here. You're a spacefarer, so you basically know what you're doing. I'm gonna say I want an engineering role from you. Yeah. Once the stag has been out working for about an hour, there's enough materials to produce a space engine, basically a mining suit for Reese as well. It's not armor as such, but it'll allow you to work outside easily enough.
Excellent.
And Susanna updates with estimated time updated to 30 hours.
Keep up the good work out there.
I recall is I have an hour of free space time before I have to come in and recharge the suit.
Correct. And you basically just need to go in and change out the oxygen bottle and go back out.
Head up again.
Search, find good things. I will. Scrounger I am.
Right. Give us an engineering from Reese as well.
I'm to keep on rolling engineering every time I go out.
Oh no, we'll just keep the rolls for the work duration, so to speak.
Very
Once
well.
Reese is done as well, you have an update of 18 hours. So you basically halved the time expected. From what you can see, the ship types here have mostly been commercial shipping, freighters. From the look of it, mostly unmanned, automated freighters as well.
Were there are two from the life pod on a frigate, if I recall?
They were indeed on a frigate. And as you are, well, it's the checking through the frigate is a bit more grisly job indeed. Seems like the entire crew of the frigate actually were killed, except for the ones who got on the light pod. Most of the frigate itself is with time. You might be able to salvage some of the electronics, but honestly, it's probably more useful for you to just let the ship reconstitute.
What about any type of
there?
What about any type of weapon systems that we may be able to install, or they kind of got destroyed?
It seems most of them have been. Seems most of the weapons and stuff there were destroyed. However, you do find one not launcher. That's the incorrect word, but a mine layer with 8 plasma mines in it that you can fit onto one of the hard points of the Elbing.
This be your thing. Explosives, not my thing.
Be good if we have to run. We can drop mines behind us.
Very good, but you salvage this bit. I will stand over there.
No problem. I'll start salvaging them.
Right. Meanwhile, in the sick bay, I assume Ond is doing his thing.
Yes, he's been preparing best as he can, given the limited facilities that we have available. I don't recollect detail, but I think it was described as somewhat limited, the medical facility at this time. He's also, I think, been spending a few CPU cycles, probably trying to see if there's any other data or about the lieutenant as another android AI system, whether there's any sort of signature or recognizable traits or anything like a sort of, let's look up this model and see if there's anything he might know about the capabilities of the lieutenant. He's just trying to understand, if there's any potential threat.
Feel free to give me a life science roll.
All right. Life science. Here we go. That would be a 17 total.
He's not familiar with the type of android the lieutenant is. From what he can gather, she has more biological parts than he does, and more than most androids he's met before. Presumably, so that she, as a combatant, can benefit more from such things as adrenaline. Setting her up for strength and reactions, but also making her a bit more vulnerable to things that Arnd wouldn't necessarily find as worrying. She seems unnerved by Arnd, but she has taken up a position where she's sitting behind one of the desks in medbay with her feet on the table and a cup of coffee in her hand, looking remarkably like Estebet does when she is bored.
Okay.
And it's well, she seems to be making an obvious point to not be tinkering with any of her weapons.
Very good. Or does Arndt's... Yeah, okay, that's fine. I was just wondering, does Arndt interpret that as... How does Arndt... Maybe interprets that as... But it's probably running through some degree of paranoia algorithms in regards to... He's trying to ascertain from a sort of insight perspective, is this she's making a deliberate show of not fiddling with her weapons in an attempt to lull Arnd into a false sense of security? Or is it just one of those routines that an android goes through to try to make others in their company feel comfortable? Or is it more because she feels uncomfortable in Arnd's very sort of presence and the way he behaves? I think that Arndt would go over to the lieutenant and say, Lieutenant, if I might trouble you, I appreciate that you are incredibly busy at this point. Gesturing to her posture and lack of anything to do. But I'm working on a particularly complex set of calculations, and I've divided it into 2 subtasks, one of which you could perhaps process for me. Would that be reasonable?
She looks a bit confused at the question at the start, and very well, Doctor. Is there a station I can use for this processing?
Well, yes, you can use the auxiliary medical banks. They're quite limited. I haven't had time to reprogram them and extend all of the calculation routines, but it should be enough processing capability for you to be able to work on your half of this difficult math equation. I've designed this specifically as a morale boosting exercise for the rest of the crew. So if you could assist me, I think it would be something that they would greatly appreciate.
Right. Okay. We'll try that. How long did you say you've been in operation for, Doctor?
I've been in operation for exactly... And then there are just some whirring sounds and a very robotic voice comes out that Arnd doesn't seem to be in control of and just says, redacted. Years.
Ah, yes. Quite. She hides her surprise pretty well. Starts working on her equations, but she's casting some more glances over at Arnd. Now that he's had the time to look her over a bit more, seems like she's got roughly 40% more biological components than On does.
I couldn't help but notice you have a significant amount of biological augmentation to you. I hope you don't mind the observation. Are all of those components functioning as expected and required, or do you require any medical assistance? At that point, he raises one of his hands, and some of the fingers sort of flip the top half backwards over, and little sort of, scalpels and various sort of dental-looking tool sets appear out of several of his fingers.
She actually gives him sort of a sly smile. Well, Doctor, I'll answer that question if you answer a question for me first. Does your crew often find you unnerving?
I don't think so. I believe they're reasonably comfortable. Of course, there are mild sedatives that I apply to each of their sustenance on a daily routine. They're not necessarily cognizant of that. I'd appreciate your discretion on the matter. That allows me to observe them whilst they sleep.
Well, as for your answer, Doctor, the percentage of biological components in me is what you would find to be more or less standard for androids in this day and age.
Ah, I see.
To elaborate on my statements, one of the mission sets we were on here was to look for anything related to pre-gap technology and knowledge, relics, if you will. Pretty standard mission parameters for a light cruiser of the Alliance. Meeting you, I would say that we have at least succeeded in that part. My memory, as we now call it in general, is not quite solid on pre-gap androids as it should be, but I do believe you would be considered to be somewhere between a Mark II and a Mark V. Very early android. What we would consider a progenitor species today.
Oh. Interesting. I think I have an appropriate Terran reference for this. Sort of pauses for a moment, almost looking like he's just stopped functioning. And then over the interconnected Bluetooth music system for everybody, including those not present on the ship, there's an excerpt from an ancient Terran moving pictures scene. And you hear a sort of a Luke, I am your father. And then it reverts back to the music that was previously playing, which was Will Smith's Boom Shake the Room after the explosion out in the near vicinity. Curious. So, should I continue to call you Lieutenant or daughter?
Given the generations between us, I feel it would be more comfortable for both of us if you were to call me
Great.
Lieutenant or Mancha.
Okay.
Lieutenant Motto, if you feel like being particularly formal, but Mancha will be just fine.
All right.
Although, should I be piloting a fighter at any point, I would prefer that you use my call sign Hellcat.
All right. Okay. So, Lieutenant Mancha Hellcat Marto. Understood. Registered. All of the information is safely stored.
I would appreciate if you, for informal conversations, partition that name and not use the entirety of it. It will make most conversations dreadfully long.
Oh, understood, Lieutenant Hellcat Marto. I will store this in an easily accessible part of my short-term memory banks, creating a folder. Great. You get the idea, granddaughter. Got it. Stored.
Right. While you've been going, the ship systems have been working on the captain. From the readouts, you can see that it'll be at least 40 hours before he can be safely awakened from the induced coma due to some slight concussive trauma to the head. And just the medications used themselves for inducing the coma in the first place. They're not meant to wear off quickly. They are actually specifically designed to wear off very slowly. So as to give the inhabitant of any escape pod the best chance of retrieval before they wake up and die a very cold and lonely death in space.
Mm-hmm. I would, if I didn't mention it previously, I'm fair to say that I would have taken blood samples and had some analysis work running in the background as well from the captain. Is there any anomaly or anything that more detailed analysis would show that where Arndt could either assist in the process or anything that he might see as unusual or needing more attention?
Well, not an anomaly as such, but he recognizes that the captain is from a high gravity planet, and as such has a denser, higher bone density and muscle density than normal. And well, that in this case is a positive thing, as it may have protected him from greater injury than he took.
Lieutenant, you mentioned specifically investigations in relation to the gap. Is there any data which you would be willing or permitted to share with me on that?
I could share any data that is common knowledge in Alliance space, but I can't share any data that you would need a military security clearance to know.
Ah, understood.
However, once the captain regains consciousness, there is one objective that we will need to discuss with him in the vicinity of this star chart reference.
Oh, are you authorized to share the nature of that with me?
Once I have had the requisite time to apprise your crew and your general trustworthiness, I will make a decision about that.
Ah, I might have information I could share with you that could expedite that process.
Ah, yes, I appreciate your offer, but being of a more biological bent, I would prefer to partake in a meal with your crew to apprise myself of their trustworthiness.
Ah, I see. Very viable tactic. I commend you. Well, should you change your mind, I have the ability to pass on to you rather rapidly via various neural connections all of the data I have gathered regarding their sleep patterns, levels of irritability based on various distinct types of musical and artistic entertainment that I provided for them, as well as, of course, a full analysis minute by minute over several weeks of all of their bodily functions that I've been able to record.
Very well. Thank you very much.
No problem. I should warn you, the data dump with regards to the actor who is traditionally it's received as our captain is quite significant. He's well, a bit of a drinker, a bit of a ladies' man. There's a lot of data there. It's kind of repetitive, but
that would be the wandering temporal anomaly you're referring to.
Correct. Yes. In other words, Cal's big dump. If you would like access to it, let me know.
Very well. Thank you for the offer.
How are you getting along with that calculation? My half of it is completed.
Oh, with a somewhat sheepish grin, she shows on that she's managed to boot up an old game.
Oh.
Seems to be set in the Age of Sail, if he's not incorrect. Playing against AI-controlled ships of various classes.
Oh.
In a 10 versus 10 match. She seems to be doing fairly well.
Well, this is marvelous. This is more than I could have hoped. You're able to actually animate and depict what's going on. I was working on a simple sort of scoreboard, if you will. I was going to have various algorithms calculate a kill-death ratio, a win rate, and other statistics. Currently, it's Elbing 1, silly enemy pirate ships 0.
Well, when it comes to increasing crew morale, sir, I find that letting the crew actually control the ships that their score is based on tends to increase morale more than just being presented with a set of numbers every morning. This, however, was installed on this console, I believe, through a back door.
Interesting.
But should be easy enough to replicate.
Well, thank you for discovering and enlightening me on this topic. It's strange so far, my calculations towards the morale of the crew. I mean, basically, this spreadsheet says they were having fun. Perhaps I'll have to rethink.
Right. Over to Kimu and Estribeth. What are you doing while the others are out spacewalking?
Astrobet is sitting with her legs up on the console, just making sure she's not touching anything and looking at how they're working, adjusting the course whenever needed and making sure the ship is not on the way for the salvage.
Kimu's basically just keeping an eye on the sensors, watching for anything coming in range and just monitoring the systems.
You know, for my first space battle since I left the my last posting, this has been really boring.
It is a bit anticlimactic. It's not what I was expecting either. But then again, I've only seen ground combat until now.
I'm not a big fan of ground combat. I'm better when I have something to maneuver out of it.
You flew fighters, didn't you?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to know, what was it like?
Her eyes glaze slightly over, and she's gripping something that's not there as she's remembering. Well, the feeling of freedom is amazing. It's just you and the open sky. Everything you can hit with it, well, if you can't avoid it, that's your problem and you're probably dead. It's amazing. It becomes a part of you.
I envy you that. I've flown skiffs. I've flown medium-sized shuttles. I've been on a starship a few times, but fighters, no. No one would let me near them, apart from maintaining them. I've
Well,
flown a few in sim, but that's as far as it goes. Actually flying one in the black. Maybe one day.
perhaps. I could probably teach you. I was an ace pilot back in the day, and I was pretty darn good.
Well, I'm willing to learn if you're willing to teach me. We'll need to find some fighters first.
Yeah, and that's probably not going to be the easiest thing, but if I get one, I'll remember you.
Fair enough. I've probably got room in the cargo bay and the hangars to store at least one. Something to chase up.
It's 3 unless I'm mistaken, although 2 would be more comfortable.
Maybe a 3rd in storage for spare parts.
Always give spare parts.
Agreed. A good stock of spare parts is what this ship needs.
At least she said we could manufacture them. But that's your job, right? I'm just a pilot.
Well, Reese and myself, if we can get the spare parts printed, we should be able to bring the systems back up to close to 100%. And then it's time to start working on upgrades. I'd like to get a Technomancer sensor set in here. Something to look at when we get back to Absalom Station, maybe.
Definitely, but first we need to get the engines up online. I'm not flying this through the... Yeah.
Maneuverability does leave a bit to be desired.
The maneuverability of her is amazing. And the fact that you didn't strap in fast enough is not my problem.
I'm not wearing my gravity boots. Next time I will be.
Why on earth would you not wear your gravity boots while on a ship?
Because they were in storage, and I didn't put them back on when we came back off the ground. Too busy to get to the bridge.
Well, fair enough. It's your concussion.
Not if I can help it. Let the others fall about. I want to stay stuck to the deck.
It's normally a good idea.
I envy Stag. He's had 0G training. Must be something floating out there. Just you in the suit.
Well, just make yourself a suit and go help them. I mean, maybe we could get it down to, I don't know, 10 hours.
I don't think this is the occasion to have a newbie wandering around, tumbling free in space. Let's save the suit for another time. They can do well enough without me.
Probably doing better without you if you're that much of a noob.
I won't always be. But right now, they don't need the distraction.
Come on, let's go see if we can get some food. That rabbit left something to be desired.
Let's see if Susanna's decided it's time for you to get black coffee this time.
It's after 11.
Question for Susanna over radio link in the suit itself. Can Can the Elbing recover and reconstitute power cores of the frigate, etc., for use for components for those missiles?
If the frigate had been disabled and not blown to smithereens, that would have been possible. However, the energy of the power core has been spread over a very large area on account of it going boom.
Next time, disable ship. Gotcha.
Tell the pirates that.
Perhaps
yet,
let me talk to them next time.
we would be able to reconstitute power cores. Estimate that one Corvette class attacker would a power core from one of those would be enough to power one missile.
Thank you, Susanna. That was impressive.
It's been 8 hours, and Stag and Reese have returned inside, as most of what wreckage that left has to be picked up with a lot of maneuvering, making zero-G walking an extremely impractical thing to be doing. And the gentle chiming dinner bell is playing over the ship.
I'd like to think that for several of the last few hours, the music that's been playing has been pretty, cheerful enough, but fairly monotonous, a bit repetitive. It's basically a greatest hits of elevator music from the 80s.
Remember, add selective choices of radio channels to Spacesuit.
Music? I've been telepathically jamming the radio. Hadn't noticed.
Esther pulls out a dot from her ear. What?
It's not even phasing Sistag.
Sauerbraten?
Yes. Seems to be some sort of beef stew being served.
Oh well, it probably is better than slop.
Beats grilled rabbit.
And you can see the two androids heading in as well.
Before we get close to the others, I just sort of reach out and say to the lieutenant, if you want to make a good start, then see if you can get Susanna, that's the computer running the show around here, see if you can get that computer to dispense some strong black coffee and offer it to Esther Beth. She seems quite taken by this, seems to elevate her blood system and dilate her pupils a little and leave her feeling a little bit more chipper.
Very well. Thank you for the helpful information.
You're welcome. I appreciate your assistance with the morale platform.
We will need to find a name for that game that you've copied over onto their personal pads.
Well, I figure that it involves spaceships and a degree of conflict, combat. I'm going to start my potential name analysis in that direction. I've got a working title for now. If anybody raises any questions or whatever, I've tentatively named it for a code name Happy Happy Joy Joy.
Very well. So the mess is filled with a fairly delicious smell of beef stew.
This works.
Yep. Excuse me. I think Sir Stag wants to talk to me. Yes, Sir Stag.
I'll need your assistance to help set up a mine layer in one of the hard points.
Yes. Yeah, of course. They can certainly come and help with that.
Yeah, we have 5 plasma mines that we can drop in case we're being chased by someone.
The lieutenant looks up at you. Oh, did one of our mine layers survive? Well, in that case, I do believe you actually have 8 actual mines available, as 3 of them will be loaded into the tubes of the mine layer itself.
I think we better unload it before we try and install it.
I would not recommend that. The plasma mines are armed.
In that case, we'll just have to be very careful.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Perhaps the plasma mines came with an instruction manual written in Finnish. That should help Kimul.
Finnish? Is that a fictional
Wasn't that
language?
your language of preference when we were first reprogramming the ship's computer?
I just thought Susanna had made it up.
Oh, I see.
I thought it was her way of saying she'd finished being awkward.
So how long have I been in zero gravity?
You've been out working effectively for 6 hours. And you are pretty hungry. The lieutenant carries over what seems to be a styrofoam cup of piping hot black coffee that she places in front of Estrabeth before taking a seat.
Thank you.
I must start to feel getting close to exhaustion.
Yeah, it's definitely been tough. Stag, though, luckily being a Marine, it's not his first time in Zero G, but yeah, he's at the end of a workday, definitely. He's gonna need a sleep cycle pretty soon. Yeah, the lieutenant looks over at him and goes, well, Stag, was it? That was a very impressive spacewalk you did there. I assume you have naval experience?
Yes, I was a part of Marine detachment.
Excellent. Should you feel the need to do any unarmed combat training, please feel free to inform me.
That would be interesting. Kind of, these people around here may be a little too weak for unarmed combat that I'd be doing.
Yes, it has been a recurring issue with the interspecies fleet cooperation that West Marines are often understimulated when it comes to physical exercise due to humans and Isoki and Lashuntas being too fragile to do proper West hand-to-hand combat.
I will definitely take you up on your offer, Lieutenant.
Although we did have a Isoki major who was quite the fiend in hand-to-hand combat. Small, yes, but fast, and with a nose for weak points that you wouldn't believe. She smiles as she starts eating. This is excellent food. Your chef must be better than whatever we had on our frigates.
Susanna is pretty awesome. When she listens.
Oh, I think she always listens. She just doesn't always respond.
Nor does she care.
Leans over to Kim a little bit closer and go, very flattering, this lieutenant. Very ingratiating. Suspicious.
You noticed. It's called diplomacy, Reese.
It's called exploiting weaknesses. Do not be charmed.
Oh, don't worry. I'm not.
As
Reese.
you're eating, Susanna pipes in. After reconstitution of the high energy density materials, we can now improve ship systems by a flat 17.5%. Once materials for oxygen bottles and a spacesuit for the master engineer have been subtracted from the total.
Sounds awesome.
Susanna, what are our most urgent repairs? I believe it's the engines, the life support, and the sensors, is it not?
Currently, for continued sustenance of organic life, the life support needs a 30% repair increase within the next 96 hours. Were we to use all of the reconstituted parts for the life support, and that would be a 35% repair increase to life support systems, granting a suspected ability to sustain organic life of 13 months.
What amount of improvements required on the engines to allow us to enter drift?
To enter drift, engines need to be at 60%.
If we devote enough resources to the life support to reach 90% efficiency, how much can we improve the engine's function by?
Currently, if all resources were to be devoted to life support would be taken to 71% efficiency.
Looks like we have a choice to make.
Yes, survive or not survive, it sounds like.
Well, we can have the life support functioning for 13 months, which gives us time to find more minerals suitable to make more parts. On the other hand, we might not be flying anywhere very quickly.
True, but we wouldn't be flying anywhere quickly anyway, given that the engines need far more than we can provide at this time.
Agreed. I think we've got to devote the resources to life support on its own.
Maybe you can use sensors to find another area where we can pick up other materials, even if it's planet base.
Well, we did find some resources, and then we found the frigates and the corvette. So, there might still be other sources out there.
The lieutenant looks around and, if you don't mind me asking, what exactly are your motivations to be out in this fairly dark, dangerous, and unexplored sector? You don't strike me as pirates. Or if you are very bad pirates.
We're not pirates, Lieutenant. We were survivors of the disappearance of the liner Britannia gave us a common purpose. And we were hired by the Starfinder Society to find the missing ships. That's it. That's why we're here.
Well,
And honor back to me.
Yes, my friend Sustag was dishonored for something he doesn't remember doing, so we're looking for evidence to help clear his name. We're also looking for any trace of my family who are missing.
Many reasons to search for evidence and the pirates in this sector, what is going on and what's happening. We have multiple reasons for joining up. Knowledge, rewards.
And
Please go ahead.
and also to find our missing memories.
Yes, there is some anecdotal information and data that I've calculated. There is approximately a 69% chance that what affected us during the capturing, if you will, of the Britannia was in some regards related to, well, or reminiscent of the side effects or effects of the anomaly known as the gap. Localized, and nevertheless, even my systems are affected, and there are gaps in my data around precisely that time period.
Astrobet is flicking a colorful candy she just found somewhere into her mouth and goes like, I'm just a pilot.
right. She looks deep in thought for a moment, and suddenly looks Reese deep in the eyes, distracting him for a moment so that Babu can grab a piece of meat off of his fork and disappear under the table. I see. You say that you need resources. I believe Captain Solomon would approve of me aiding you in that part, especially as it pertains directly to his survival. We were tracking the debris of a Terran Sovereign-class battleship, pre-Gap. A small part of debris, to be sure, but anything in there could be vital, or at least incredibly valuable. And I believe from the estimates the ship here has given us that the high-density materials that your AI here is seeking would be, well, present in a fairly high concentration in that part of battleship.
What
I would be willing to give you our best estimate of the area to be looking in.
that would be extremely useful, Lieutenant. What sort of mass are we looking at?
I would guess from sensors that we would be speaking of about 1,300 long tons.
I believe that could complete most of the repairs. If it's recyclable material, then we could probably print almost all of the parts that we need. I
Great.
probably have some left over.
I really feel skeptical about her motives for giving us this valuable information, sensing traps, etc. So I want to listen to her really carefully now. Is she sending us on a wild goose chase? Is this a trap or whatever?
You do have the sense motive. She seems to be entirely forthright, although a bit hesitant about giving you any information. But she does continue speaking. However, in return for this, I would ask that you, and your Marine here in particular, give me your oath that me and Captain Solomon, until further notice, would be treated as part of your crew with all the safety and mutual protection that would entail. We do find ourselves marooned on your ship in a fairly remote part of space, and while I hesitate to trade secrets for security, in this case I feel it is warranted.
Lieutenant, why do you need my approval? I'm honorless.
You may be honorless in the eyes of your people, Marine, but I have worked with West Marines before, and if your word can't be trusted, nobody on this ship's word can be trusted.
You understand that you're secure here anyway.
Well, as much as it gratifies me to hear you say that, I would like a solemn promise. As I know that if any of you kill me in my sleep after the Marine has given his solemn promise, he would probably react by ripping your heads off, which does make me feel a bit more comfortable.
I'm sure it would. You'll understand if I ask you to give us a few moments to talk about it.
Certainly. You'll find me in the medbay.
Thank you.
And she gets up and leaves.
Thoughts, everyone? Reese, come on.
First appearing with a grenade strikes me as somewhat of a loose cannon. But sensed honesty in wanting to trade information. So I don't know. It's hard to know whether the honor of this person is good or not.
So, Stag, your opinion is still vital.
I will honor her request.
Good to know. And?
Well, the lieutenant does have a significant percentage of her systems integrated with, augmented with organic components, and I believe there's a degree of self-preservation playing a role here that might not be prevalent in other Android systems, such as myself. Therefore, there may be, as Reese suggests, a degree of wild card. On the other hand, extreme measures, it may also have been some degree of a bluff, or simply just confusion after the attack and the circumstance. Nevertheless, she has not blown a hole in our cargo hold, and most likely resulted in Reese being sucked out into space. And she did assist me with some important calculations in the interests of raising morale amongst the crew, but more on that later.
Yes. You might want to talk about that. Astrobeth.
Well, this is what I do. I take people or things where they need to go. So, I'm game.
Very well. I would suggest that Arndt and Sir Stag keep an eye on the lieutenants in case there's something else going on. But it seems a fair trade, and it might allow us to get the Elbing back up and running properly. And that's something we can all work towards.
It's more than a fair trade. This is way more than we would normally charge for a passage.
I was aware of that. It's more than the services for a mercenary company. Very well. And shall we go down to the med bay and inform the lieutenant of our decision?
Yes, but one brief moment. I would, however, like to introduce two measures that we've been taken, one of which the lieutenant did assist me with. We've provided some additional enhancements to your personal computer systems so that you might find yourselves able to be entertained, distracted, and hopefully in time somewhat happier. There is a small program which has been added to each of your personal devices. It's not been finalized and fully named yet. It's currently codenamed Happy Happy Joy Joy. It's quite a simplistic system, sort of an arcade toy or game, if you will. And it's based around ancient Terran traditions of inefficient travel by sea. Large metallic vessels that would be put on oceans and travel at ludicrously slow paces and generally break down, and if they didn't blow each other up or run into each other. Anyway, you're free to do that, and the data that I've been collating in my spreadsheet says that it should be a lot of fun for you. And in addition, I've also taken the liberty, having analyzed each of your responses on the various video capture systems of the ship, to the great victory that we registered earlier this day, where we have now got a system running a big scoreboard in the mess hall. You can see there. Susanna, if you'd bring that up on screen, please. It says Elbing 1. Silly pirate enemies 0. But having analyzed the video footage of your reactions to the victory, and there's a brief moment where Arn pauses, the music stops and suspenseful sort of drop, and then there's a bit of anime music, and then a voice comes in that says, "One punch!" Yes, none of you seem to be particularly elated at our great victory. Perhaps overwhelmed indeed by the fact that it only took one punch. I have therefore enhanced the systems. From now on, no matter which of the weapons systems utilized, and don't worry, Sishtag, this hasn't affected the coding of the weapon systems themselves. The ship Susanna has been programmed to play the following sound whenever we strike a successful blow to an enemy vessel. You see, morale has already grown by 4.7%. That was my correction, 4.69%.
I make it 5.2. A good job, Arndt. Thank you.
You're all welcome. Let's head to the medical bay.
Maybe we can put, like in our Marines, we actually put on side of our vessels what ships we destroy. As in like hash marks.
I believe at one time on Ancient Terror that pilots used to stencil the outlines of craft under the cockpit for each vessel that they destroyed. Perhaps we could do something like that.
Yeah, why not? We normally use tattoos. I show off something on my shoulder. Since we normally switch up ships way too often.
A good point.
Sishtag, with your permission, I could get to work doing some calculations on how we could maybe make some short period spacewalk activities efficient for you, not too much strain, so that you could indeed begin placing these markings on the outside of the ship at your leisure. A bit of sport, I guess.
It's that would be appreciated. But if you all excuse me, I must. It is time for me to rest.
Indeed. Good job, Sir Stag. You were outside for quite a long time. Go and rest. We'll look at installing the mine layer later.
I may have misunderstood, but I thought you guys were headed to Medbay. Was I wrong?
No.
I believe
Before
Kimmy.
Stag went to sleep.
Yeah, Kimmy and Arn were going to head there, but after this conversation.
Oh yes, right. My bad. I have completely misunderstood. Right.
She wanted you though, so you need to come with us first.
Who, me?
Yep.
Sistag actually feels a bit refreshed, as does everybody else, as the air quality of the Elbing is starting to very markedly improve as the ship is manufacturing and installing and upgrading the life support.
Susanna, current efficiency status of the life support, please.
Current efficiency status of life support is 46%. Estimate another 8 hours until life support is at 71%.
Thank you, Susanna.
Well, I, for one, had that already factored in. The fact that Cal hasn't been here for more than a few seconds at a time has resulted in improved air quality.
And you notice also that the lighting in the halls is just better, more comfortable. Doors are sliding up and closed more cleanly. And the gravity seems to be stabilizing a bit more than it's been the last couple of days you've been here, where suddenly you find yourself floating in some hallways and crawling in others.
Well, gravity seems to be stable. It's a shame, really. It's a bit disappointing.
No reason to take off the mag boots.
Not on your life.
Especially the way you fly.
I had to test how she maneuvers. The fact that you didn't have the time to grab
I
onto
was
something
already
is not my problem.
I was already seatbelt, ma'am.
Entering Medbay, you see the lieutenant moving Captain Solomon's Medbay around a bit as automated systems are improving and installing parts of the medbay. It seems the medbay itself falls under life support.
Lieutenant?
She looks properly astonished. Where did you say you found this ship?
We didn't.
These systems, they're groundbreaking, even on a capital ship in the Alliance. Most of these systems would be considered to be too expensive.
We found it in a planet that slave laborers have took our other ship down on, Lieutenant.
Ah, I take it by your newfound forthrightness to my questions that you have come to a decision.
Yes, we have. Your offer is more than fair, and we're prepared to grant you the terms that you've asked for in return for the location of the wreckage.
Ah, very well. I'm certain the captain will be pleased once he wakes up. For now, allow me to give you the coordinates, and she plugs them into Estrebet's pad. What we're looking for is part of the stern section of an ancient Terran battleship named the Amalgard.
Didn't we destroy an ancient dreadnought when we left the slave ship that we were on?
Yes, you did.
I'm asking our ma'am.
Maybe.
I do not recall the name. Do you?
You mean the stinky hole we just got out of before it lost our structural integrity? No, I don't.
If you all excuse me, I must go to rest.
Good night.
Rest well.
Well, the Amalgard was destroyed pre-gap in the inner system during, one of the many wars of aggression between the species before the gap. But projections of the piece of hull are that it should have been drifted into this sector in the years between then and now. We are very far away from the core systems. Such it's impossible to say whether or not we'll actually find it, but if we do, and if it is what Alliance Internal Security thinks it might contain, there could potentially be a complete or parts of an ancient Terran fabrication unit in that hull. What it would have fabricated, we have no idea. It could be cutlery, but it could also be extremely valuable.
Or if we're really lucky, extremely valuable cutlery.
Yes, that is also an alternative.
Just the presence of the fabrication unit itself, that would be very valuable salvage.
As for your ship's reconstitution of materials, I believe the part of battleship we're looking for, even having been made with ancient Terran technology, will have degraded quite significantly. But there should still be enough material there to effect some repairs.
Well, we best lay in a course and get started.
I'll go do that.
And you can hear Susanna go, atmosphere acceptable. Secondary cargo areas unlocked.
Secondary
I'm gonna
cargo?
go look on that first.
Not without me, you're not.
Interesting.
I'm gonna follow my instincts and find out and go down there.
Ditto.
Me. And would you stay with the lieutenant and make sure that the captain is recovering adequately?
Or do you want to come with us? They're part of the crew now. They can take care of themselves.
Well,
Do not worry. I will take care of him.
Very good, Lieutenant. Coming, Arndt?
Yes. Lieutenant, I've taken the liberty of extending our connectivity through to yourself too. And the music starts playing through to her system as well. And I think at this point it's some sort of suspenseful, like terrible B-movie, sort of medical. Maybe it's like the soundtrack from ER or something like that. A lot of 80s and early 90s TV shows.
Very well. Walking into the cargo bay, you see that two doors on the right and left side of the cargo bay are now blinking green.
I'll start with door number 1.
Right. Opening it up, there's a small hangar. Situated in that hangar, to Astrobet's great surprise, is a very sleek fighter craft in black, yellow, and red.
I first try to walk a bit, nonchalantly in there, and then I just run for it.
Well,
I think he found your fighter, Astrid.
there goes our second captain. Whose turn is it now?
I'm not leaving. I just need to check this out.
Go. But come back.
I am never flying a unknown fighter out of a hangar in the middle of space. I'm not that stupid. But
I
I'm
did
gonna make
wonder.
sure I find out what this is.
Why don't you climb in the cockpit and try that on for size? Run through the system, see if it's operational.
I am gonna do exactly that.
And Sistag's head has just hit the pillow when the lights start blinking red, and Susanna goes, "Unknown craft detected."
Jump up, run to my station.
And that's where we'll end today's session. We'll just let Grumbles finish recording before we do the usual quick debrief.
Mm-hmm. I'd just like to mention that there is a ping on Estrabeth's system as she receives a email from Arndt recommending that the lieutenant is assigned an official role within the crew, and he makes a suggestion that she could be assigned the role of third assistant medical officer, behind obviously Arndt as the primary medical officer, and Babu, who's been registered as the second medical officer.
I will look into it.